The book of Revelation of the New Testament, written by St. John the theologian, the beloved disciple of Christ, and concerning giants, gods, and dragons. Well, giants and gods and various beings that were not to be allowed are also in Genesis 6, the first chapter of the Old Testament. Now, the word apocalypse is merely the transliteration from Greek into English of the word apocalypsis, meaning unveiling. Now, we get revelation from the Latinized form, but before we discuss the infamous writers of Revelation 6, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, we need context. Why are they writing? On whose authority and what kind of document are these seals attached to, and why is it important? Revelation 5 opens with God sitting on his throne, holding a document in his right hand. Then I saw in the right hand of him who was seated on the throne a scroll written within, and on the back sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals?" And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to look into it, was worthy to open the scroll or to look into it. And one of the elders said to me, "Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals." This is from Revelation 5, verse 1 to 5. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. And we can guess pretty easily who John meant by those in heaven or on earth. Presumably the prophet was talking about humans in the natural realm and the spirits in heaven or the spiritual realm. But who are those who exist under the earth? Of course, we know that the fallen angels come to mind. And I was talking about this to a 13-year-old boy from our church today. He was asking about ancient Greeks and if they were sinful. And of course, I said they were pagans, before knowing what the truth was, who was the truth, that was Christ. But they were everybody was basically pagan until that. But we talked about the fallen angels, the ones that had mutinied against Christ, God, that is. And of course, God didn't create anything that was bad. Everything was good. But he made everything with free will. And I told the priest concerning the little discussion we had with this young man, 13 years old, the altar boy that helps in the church. And he said that the ancient fathers said that they believe that the top angel, Eos, or we call him the light bearer, before his being tossed out of the realm of paradise by God, him and his fallen angels, knew of God's plan to elevate mankind above angels. And he did not want to put up with that. He did not agree with that. He said, how is it possible that mankind, humans that are inferior to us spiritually, can be above us? And he didn't agree to that. That's why he rebelled, okay? And that's what the Christian doctrine, of course, tells us. And of course, that the realm of those angels is vacant, and the people, it's not the fallen angels that can be placed back into that realm, nor the angels that were obedient to God, but only humans. It's humans that are to occupy that realm. Okay, so that's why that's basically the spiritual context of this heavenly disarray. Okay, now, the Satan comes to mind. He said it should be obvious why he was not considered worthy. And I just went into the doctrine a little bit for you. But to the ancient world mind, there were other inhabitants of the spiritual realm believed to occupy the space under the earth. John is not specific in identifying who exactly is under the earth, but it's our view that these are the Rephaim spirits who plagued Israel at least from the times of Moses, probably much earlier and even much later. We know that we have ancient Greek texts from Plato and others talking about the progress of Alexander the Great, and he always had his scientists, his doctors, his journalists with him, and talking about writing all his notes about what he was going through every single day. And they talked about the Nephilim, the abominable races that they had to do away with and lock up underneath the earth. So here we go again, the space under the earth. And he covered those openings with molten copper, and on top of them built pyramids. And one is said to be the White Pyramid in China. But he also did that in India and China. So that's how the legend goes according to Plato. Now, Isaiah depicts them as kings of a bygone era, now confined to Sheol, Sheol, marveling at the rebel from Eden, has been humbled like them. And this is what was said here, according to Isaiah 14, verse 9 to 11. Sheol beneath is stirred up to meet you when you come. It rouses the shades, the Rephaim, to greet you. All who were leaders of the earth, it raises from their thrones. All who are kings of the nations, all of them will answer and say to you, you too have become as weak as we. You have become like us. Your pomp is brought down to Sheol. The sound of your harps, maggots are laid as a bed beneath you, and worms are your covers. This is Isaiah 14, chapter 14, verse 9 to 11. And his lamentation over the king of Egypt, Ezekiel depicts these long dead leaders of the earth as denizens of the netherworld, although they appear to occupy a place of honor separate from the run-of-the-mill dead. Right, okay. They shall fall amid those who are slain by the sword. Egypt is delivered to the sword. Drag her away and all her multitudes. The mighty chiefs shall speak of them with their helpers out of the midst of Sheol. They have come down, they lie still, the uncircumcised slain by the sword. They do not lie with the mighty, the fallen from among the uncircumcised. They went down to Sheol with their weapons of war, whose swords were laid under their heads. And that's what they go on. Their iniquities, for the terror of the mighty men was in the land of the living. Ezekiel chapter 32, verse 20 to 21. The term mighty chiefs in verse 21 is derived from the Hebrew ele giborim. They're located in the midst of Sheol. This is apparently a position of status, since the graves of the hated Assyrians, quote, are set in the uttermost parts of the pit, end quote. These mighty ele appear to be the underworld small g gods, venerated by the pagan neighbors of ancient Israel, called in the Ugaritic dialect the Ilms Ars, gods of the earth, quote unquote. This is confirmed by the Septuagint translation, which shows that the Jewish religious scholars 300 years before the birth of Jesus connected the mighty chiefs, quote unquote, with the legendary giants of old, the Rephaim, hence the spirits of the ancient giants, the Nephilim. And the giants will say to you, quote, come in the depths of clamor, then whom are you mightier, and descend and sleep with those who were wounded by swords, end quote. Ezekiel 32:21. Verse 27 is even more interesting. The first portion reads thus in Hebrew, Ches velo yishkeve et giborim, Nephilim me'arelim, asher yaredu Sheol, bishlei mil shamtam. Some scholars believe that Nephilim, the fallen, has a mispointed vowel and should read Nephilim instead. That would transform the phrase into this. They do not lie with the uncircumcised mighty ones, the Nephilim, who went down to Sheol with the weapons of war. Once again, the translators of the Septuagint have this connection in mind. And they were laid with the giants who had fallen long ago, who descended into Hades with weapons of war. Ezekiel 32:27. The mighty chiefs, quote unquote, of verse 21 and the mighty of verse 27 are linked in Ezekiel's mind with the ancient giants of Genesis 6, the Nephilim, who after death became the Rephaim spirits venerated by the pagan Amorites of Canaan. It turns, as we demonstrated in our book Veneration and in Derek's previous book, The Last Clash of the Titans, the Rephaim of Canaan became the Eros, translated as heroes of Greek religion, demigods like Hercules, Theseus, Perseus, and Dionysius. But let me go into the Greek mythology family tree for you, because we have to divide them into the primordial deities, and then we go into the Titans, and then we go into the Olympian gods. Okay, so, and this is from Greece highdefinition.com blog, and it's a video from familytreetemplate.org. The primordial deities. Chaos is on the top. Chaos, meaning house, meaning nothing that was orderly. Then you have Tartarus, Gaia, gave birth to Nisi, meaning islands, Urea, Pontus, and Uranus. And then you have Eros, and then you have Erebus and Nyx, giving rise to Thalassa, meaning sea, Ether, the ether of the that fills the universe, Hemera, Nemesis, Thanatos, and Hypnos. Thanatos meaning death, Hypnos meaning sleep. Then you have the Titans. Okeanos, meaning ocean, Tethys, Hyperion, Thea, Kos, Phoebe, Kronos, Rhea, Iapetus, Creus, Themis. Metis, Eos, Selene, meaning moon, Ilios, meaning sun, Mnemosini, meaning memory, Perseus, Astreos, palace, and you had Lalantos, Asteria, Leto, Monetios, Epimetheus, Prometheus, and Atlas, carrying the world. Now then, the Olympians were from Metis and Leto, the Olympians. You had Leto and Zeus giving birth to Hades, and then you had Hestia, Demeter, Hera. Leto and Hera, of course, were also husband and wife. You know, Zeus had a lot of wives anyway. All right, Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, and then you had Athena of Athens, Dione, Aphrodite, Semele, Dionysius, Apollo, Artemis, Persephone, Ares, meaning Mars, Hephaestus, meaning volcano, Hermes, and Pan. Okay? The pink is consort-lover relationship, and the black is parent-child relationship. Now, the identification was well known to Jews of the first century who had been living in a world dominated by Greek and Roman religion, so they knew about all these gods, the mythology of these gods, and philosophy for about 400 years by the time John wrote the book of Revelation. Also, in addition, John was clearly familiar with the prophecies of Ezekiel, of course. The destruction of Babylon the Great in Revelation 18 draws on the prophecy of the destruction of Tyre in Ezekiel 27. And since Ezekiel 28's condemnation of the prince of Tyre is in parallel to Isaiah 14's taunt of the king of Babylon, it's clear that John knew the prophecies, of course, of Isaiah as well. Of course, he knew all the prophecies and all of the Old Testament. However, the point here is to demonstrate that even what may appear to be a throwaway line in Revelation 5:3, under the earth, was based on John's understanding of the spirit realm. Under the earth is where the demonic Rephaim lived, those who were worshipped as gods by the pagan Amorites, Canaanites, Phoenicians, Greeks, and Romans. As we said, they were pagans. And contrary to what most people in John's day thought of Hercules and Dionysius, or the healing demigod Asclepius, not one of them was found worthy to open the scroll. Continuing in Revelation 5, we encounter more supernatural entities that we need to discuss. And between the throne and the four living creatures, and among the elders, I saw a lamb standing as though it had been slain, with 7 horns and with 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Revelation 5, verse 6. The lamb is obviously Jesus himself, newly arrived in heaven. The concept of the Messiah as a sacrificial lamb was first expressed by Isaiah, who described God's anointed one as a lamb led to the slaughter. Now, a lot of times people are referred to in the Old and New Testament as depictions of animals, like a lion or an eagle or a pig or a cow, a cattle or lamb, okay, or a snake, things like that. Now, the 4 living creatures are another callback to Ezekiel, this time to chapter 1 and the famous visions of the wheels within the wheels that modern UFO enthusiasts like to mischaracterize as alien spaceships. And as you guessed, these creatures were cherubim. They were the throne guardians of the ancient world, and anyone reading Ezekiel's description of his vision in the 6th century BC would have known immediately that what he'd seen, a heavenly throne, not a flying saucer. Cherubim stood guard at the entrance to Eden. Their wings shadowed the mercy seat on the Ark of the Covenant, upon which God was enthroned when he spoke to Moses in the tent of meeting. The 2 cherubim of olive wood, each 15 feet tall, and with a 15-foot wingspan, stood side by side in the inner sanctuary, with their outspread wings spanning the width of the chamber, guarding the very throne of God. This is not a job for pudgy infants, winged or not. Cherubim are dangerous creatures who probably look like winged bull-like sphinxes. You wouldn't dare to try to get past them to approach God Almighty without receiving permission, which speaks to the status of the Lamb in Revelation 5. He stands between the throne and the cherubim at the right hand of God, a position of supreme authority that confirms his status as the Messiah and his identity as Jesus. This is from Skywatch TV on Humans Are Free. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support.